But let's move on to a team that's in a much better position because they're the defending Super Bowl champs, and that's the Philadelphia Eagles. Last year, they had a 14-3 record. When Jeffrey Lurie, the owner, took over this team, he had high hopes, and a lot of people laughed at him when he said that he wanted the Eagles to be the gold standard of the NFL and to win multiple Super Bowls. He said Super Bowls plural, and they hadn't won one yet. Now he's got two, and people aren't laughing at him anymore, and they're definitely not laughing at this organization. 3 Super Bowl appearances in the last 8 years, winning 2. 17 playoff appearances in the last 25 years, winning 11 NFC East titles. Last year, they won the NFC title game and Super Bowl by a combined 50 points. So, just like any other sports team in America, we ask the question, are they going to repeat, or are they going to have the Super Bowl, World Series, NBA Finals hangover? What's it going to look like year 2, or can they defend their title? They're not only, like you mentioned earlier, they're not only trying to become the first NFC East team to repeat as division champs, since they won 4 straight from 2001 to 2004, but the 92 and the 93 Cowboys are the only NFC East team to repeat as Super Bowl champs. The offense side of things remains largely intact from last season. Saquon Barkley put up, obviously, a magical run last year, but he was used a lot, and it was one of the best seasons because he stayed healthy with all of the usage, with the amount of carries that he got. He had over 2,000 yards rushing behind the league's best O-line. He had another 499 yards in 4 playoff games. So I think that all of that type of production will be tough to repeat. The good thing is he does have A.J. Dillon now. They got him this past offseason, which could lighten the load for him. They wouldn't have to use him as much as they did last year. They did lose Mekhi Becton on their O-line to free agency, but they still have one of the best O-lines. They got Lane Johnson. They got Mailata. Just in the trenches, this is still the best team in the league. And that's largely how they won it last year. They didn't even have to use their talent much on the outside with A.J. Brown and those guys. So first off, just give me your thoughts on them from an offensive side of things.
Like you said, pretty much all intact from last year. I am getting tired of the disrespect I've been seeing Jalen Hurts getting. Putting guys like Herbert's more like skill based, but putting guys like Jared Goff, even Baker, Stafford over Jalen Hurts. I mean, if you recall, so Jalen Hurts has been to 2 Super Bowls. He's won the MVP.
Played well in both.
I mean, you could argue he was the MVP of the other Super Bowl. I think he was the best player in that Super Bowl against Kansas City. It's just they called that pass interference call on. He could have had a game-winning drive too if that pass interference or the holding call wasn't called in that at the end of that Super Bowl. Yeah, I mean he's a winner. He's showed up clutch in the moments. I mean, if people want to ban the tush push, they say it's bad for football. I say it's not a skill. Well, no one else has figured it out. I mean, it's a skill. It's a skill that no other quarterback's figured out, and he does it so effectively. I mean, I think that should go on his resume of how that should have him ranked over guys who haven't won anything, or guys like even over, I think, Stafford. I keep mentioning Stafford just because I just saw him on the list of top 10 quarterbacks, which I agree with, but he's just nowhere near Hurts at this moment in his career or in Hurts' career. So, yeah, I just want to get that off my chest. I feel like Jalen Hurts is a top 5 quarterback. I think he's number 5, in my opinion, behind the 4 AFC guys. Just tired of the disrespect. Saquon is the wild card here. Already mentioned that term with the Cowboys, but that's just because he had a full-on healthy year last year, and the history of Saquon Barkley shows that is a rarity in the NFL. So you mentioned A.J. Dillon. That is a good running back, too, to have that can take the load off. But if Saquon goes down, that's a steep fall off in production if you're relying on A.J. Dillon to be your running back 1. So that could be a concern if Saquon doesn't remain healthy, which history shows that might not happen this year. But they can always fall back on their receiving core. It's incredible. A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert. I mean, You can just
Yeah.
rely on those guys. And Jalen Hurts running the ball. I mean, it's pretty incredible offense. Like you said, the offensive line is also elite. One thing you mentioned, they went 14-3 last year. If you think about it, they including the playoffs, they started off the year 2-2. They ended up winning 16 of their last 17 games, including the playoffs and Super Bowl. That one loss was that loss at the Commanders where Hurts got hurt in the first quarter and
Right.
Kenny Pickett had to play the rest of the game, and that was at the Commanders, and they barely lost that game. So, like I said, this was truly a dominant team last year. I think one of the best teams of the 21st century. Got off to a mediocre start with that. Saquon got off to a hot start. I remember that because he was on my fantasy team when he scored those 3 touchdowns week 1 in Sao Paulo, Brazil. But yeah, they got off to a kind of weak start with that 2-2, and there were questions about, hey, remember they didn't finish too well the year before. Is this team going to be? I mean, is Sirianni going to be gone by the end of the year? Is time to have questions about Jalen Hurts? No, all those are put to rest very quickly after that bye. They had an early bye week last year. After
Right.
that, yeah,
I
they won
remember that.
16 of their last 16 of their last 17 games, and might be the title favorites this year. So yeah,
Yeah.
kudos to the Philadelphia Eagles.
So yeah, offense is explosive, largely intact. Now the defensive side, a lot of turnover on this side of things. Brandon Graham retires. Josh Sweat and Milton Williams, they lose them to free agency, which they combined for 4.5 sacks in the Super Bowl alone. C.J. Gardner-Johnson got traded out. Darius Slay was released. But this GM, Howie Roseman, has done a great job at drafting young defensive talent over the years. I mean, just look at some of the guys now that they have: Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, Nolan Smith, Kobe Dean, Quinyon Mitchell, and our favorite, Cooper DeJean. This year they added Alabama linebacker Jahad Campbell in the first round. Plus they have one of the best defensive coordinators in the league, probably the best defensive coordinator in the league in Vic Fangio. So I think this is just their system, their pattern of how they're going to do things. They're going to draft young talent, build that defense up, and once they're, out of those rookie contracts and have to be paid big bucks, they're going to let them go, and they'll hold on to the most important guys, obviously. But it's kind of a strategy that's taken over multiple teams, and we see it around the league. But I think the Eagles have done it the best out of any team, and I think a lot of that has to do with Howie Roseman's position as the GM and what he's been able to do in the draft.
We talked about this team a few weeks ago, but do you recall a couple of years ago the Dolphins released Vic Fangio as their defensive coordinator because the players just didn't like his personality. He was too mean, too rough. That just shows
he didn't belong in Miami.
Yeah, it just shows you the exact. That's why Miami is showing no signs of winning anything anytime soon. Because Fangio is just one of the best defensive coordinators in the league. So yeah, they're going to be relying on young guys a lot this year in their defense. You mentioned like losing Milton Williams. They're going to have to rely on their like Nolan Smith, Jordan Davis, youngsters up there on the front to fill that role. Recent history of the Eagles shows that they will do that job just fine. They spent their first 5 draft picks this year on defensive players, like you mentioned, Jahad Campbell. From Alabama. They're going to be using him. The issue is, and it might not be an issue, but sophomore slumps or just slumps can happen to not just quarterbacks. Like when you rely on young defenses, like I've seen it before with teams. You rely on young guys. They play out of their minds early on in their career, like early, and you think, okay, this guy is going to be really good. And then unfortunately, that turns out to be their peak, and they just kind of slowly have a decline. Not saying it's going to happen, but it's not out of the realm of possibilities because it's been shown multiple times. So yeah, they've lost a few veterans, so that will be interesting. But they have, like I said, one of the best coordinators in the league. I think they'll be able to figure it out. You could maybe see some high-scoring games early on in the year. Like you could see them having to rely on their offense more early on in the year to win some games, but I would not be surprised towards the end of the year if that defense locks in.
Yeah. On the discussion of them being the gold standard of the league, most people probably wouldn't want to say that as in an all-time sense. Obviously, Patriots and Chiefs, what they've done this century, but this is the one team that's beaten them both in the Super Bowl. And at this moment in time, they are the gold standard. They are the best team in the NFL, and I would have them favored as the Super Bowl champs. I know I got an alert today that they're no longer the favorites anymore. I don't know who is at this point, but I would, you know, I would pick them as the favorite to go all the way. So you're the over under for this one. I was seeing at 11.5. Yeah,
There was
it's a good
always
line.
There's always a Super Bowl hangover. This is my stay away line. There's always a Super Bowl hangover. I don't have them going 14-3. I have them at 11 or 12 wins. I I'm I don't. This is my least confident. So if I'm wrong, I'm wrong because I would not bet this in real time. But I could see them winning 11. I might see the under. I really do think this schedule thing is really tough for all four of these teams. I think it will wear on them over time. It is interesting. The last three games of the year, they get the Commanders twice and at the Bills in between those games. I don't really like that. I hate that they arguably the two best teams in the division don't play each other until the last 3 weeks of the year. I don't like that, but it is what it is. And then at Buffalo, that might be tough too. Yeah, it'll be, like I said, not very confident in it. But gun to head, I would go under, but not much under. I think it'd be 11-6 is where I'm seeing them this year.
Yeah, I thought 11.5 was a good line. I am going over. You do get plus money on it, plus 110 at this point. I think there'll be a slight regression, but I don't think it'll be too much of an issue for a team like this. If it was a team like Cincinnati or Miami that found a way to win a Super Bowl with a super talented air raid offense, then I would say, okay,
that would be the easiest. Those would be the easiest unders in history. Yeah,
but with a team that's this good in the trenches and that's how they win, and it's very methodical, I'm comfortable going over with this one. Not 14 wins. I do have them at 12 right there. So it's not a super confident pick, but I think 11 wins would still win this division just with the teams that are in it and the regression I'm going to see from the Commanders. Yeah, I think I'll go over with plus 100 on or plus 110 on 11.5. Last team to talk about here is the New York Giants. Last year they finished 3-14. Surprisingly, owner John Mara didn't give the boot to general manager Joe Shane and head coach Brian Dable. But this season they are probably the hottest seats in the NFL right now are those two positions. It doesn't help that it was so publicly shown on HBO's Hard Knocks, the Saquon Barkley situation, the Saquon Barkley saga, where Joe Shane was like, no, he's not going to the Eagles. It sounds like the Bears are interested in him. And then he goes to the division rival, puts up an MVP type season, and wins a Super Bowl to your in division rival. That to me would have gotten them the boot 9 times out of 10. But Mara doesn't want to be that guy that just gets rid of guys when things are not going so well. But this season they've got Russell Wilson. I'm not too big on that, but the deep ball could improve a lackluster offense. They were tied for last place last season in explosive plays of 20 plus yards. So the moon ball that did so well for a few weeks in Pittsburgh could do well for a few weeks in the Big Apple. They drafted Abdul Carter, which that'll be the guy that actually I think gets the most eyes on him with this team. Definitely bolsters the D-line. And then the one guy that's going to be interesting to see from this season to next season is if there's going to be much of a development of Jackson Dart. We don't know if he'll even see the field this season. If he does, it'll be very seldom when they're getting blown out, or if by chance he gets to play in those last couple of weeks of the season. But his development will be a key storyline with a pretty good quarterback draft class coming in next year. Will they hold on to him and stamp, put down their foot and say this is our guy for the future, or are they going to try to get somebody else in next year's draft?
Yeah, they're in a weird spot right now. I will say though, their defensive line is no joke. Like
no joke.
It's elite. Like honestly, their defense is not bad at all. So yeah, their D line: Brian Burns, Kayvon Thibodeau, Abdul Carter they just drafted, and Dexter Lawrence. I mean that's I don't care how good your offensive line is, you're going to have your hands full against those four. I think Bobby Okereke and Micah McFadden make a good linebacking core. Their secondary's not a huge fan, but if you can generate pass rush, that you're going to be able to scare some teams this year. So I will say that Malik Neighbors, fantastic rookie year for a terrible Giants team. That shows you how good he potentially could be. Could be the next LSU guy to take over the wide receiver one discussion in the league. But yeah, I made this clear several weeks ago. I was not a fan of the Russell Wilson signing.
It's like our first episode when we.
That was our first episode. I still don't like it, but I kind of understand what you're doing now. I guess. I mean, them also signed Jameis Winston. So is he supposed to be is Dart even going to see the field this year? Like, is Winston going to be your QB, your backup if Wilson goes down? Or, but like, I don't think Dart should be thrown into the Wolves. I think if I said this with Drake May a few weeks ago, if you're a top 3 or 5 pick, there is the excuse is, he needs to sit back and watch this backup quarterback play for him so he can learn. No, that's dumb. But Jackson Dart, some didn't even have him in the first round. Some did, but some had him like second round grade. But the Giants traded up for him and took him. That you don't throw him to the Wolves early. You do. He's a development project right now. So I would be shocked if they got rid of him. But if they drafted a quarterback next year and said, no, we're not going to try out this guy, unless they get a new coach and a new GM and they just look at it and say, we're just going to clean everything this old management did, which is possible, but I don't think you give up on a first-round quarterback that easily. But they're definitely a better team than last year. Like I said, their defense is almost playoff caliber good, I would say. Their offense with a way past his prime Russell Wilson is not very good, but like you said, could open up the deep ball some more, and
especially with someone like Malik Neighbors on the outside,
which should be more exciting. Yeah, it'd be more exciting for the fans to see that. I think the Tyrone Tracy, and they drafted Cam Scatabo from Arizona State. That could be an interesting running back combination. Like, I think they'll be more enjoyable to watch than in the last few years, even with Russell Wilson at quarterback. I think there is some intrigue here with this Giants team.
Yeah, I'm seeing their line at 5.5. Is that where you were seeing it?
Yes, and we mentioned earlier on an earlier podcast, I think when the schedule came out, their opening is just weeks 1 through 8 open up at Washington, at Dallas. Dallas is say whatever you want about Dallas. Dallas has owned the Giants. Dak Prescott's owned the Giants in his career. So at Washington, at Dallas, Kansas City, Chargers, at Saints, Philly, at Denver, at Philly. The only game that you would say they have a chance to be favored in is at New Orleans. All those, there might be double-digit underdogs in those games. So you could see them getting off to a horrible start and then might throw Dart in there just to see if they got anything, or they'll keep Wilson, who knows. But I don't, because of, if that was like towards the end of their season, I would maybe feel a little more confident in the 5.5, but I could see that gauntlet breaking them, and then they just went to the finish line. They will improve on their 3-win total. It'll be at 5. It will not reach past 5.5. So I will take the under.
I'm gonna take more plus money here. I'm gonna go over 5.5. Say they're gonna get to that 6th win, double their win total from last year. I think their defense, like you said, is a playoff type of defense, and I think Wilson has just enough juice to at least get them over that 5.5. Have some explosive plays with Malik Neighbors, and
they do have the hardest strength of schedule in the league because they have to play their whole division and the whole NFC North and the whole AFC West. So yes, we didn't mention that at the top, but all of these teams are in the top 10 for most difficult strength of schedules in the league. Giants are first.
Yeah. Well, I still think they're better than Dallas. And I don't care what Dak's done in the past. I think this year's going to be a little bit different, and it's my feelings on Dallas this year. I've got them unders all the way, last in the division, and clearly you can tell by that. My division standings are going to be Eagles, Commanders, Giants, Cowboys. Is that close to what you have it as?
So I have been looking at this carefully. You look at this. So what we're going, it's 2025. So this is 21 years now without a consecutive division champion in this division. You would think this would be the year where this finally happens. Go back to when the Eagles won the Super Bowl. They won Super Bowl 52 against Brady. They came back the next year. They went 9-7. They did make the playoffs, and Nick Foles did show some magic in the playoffs. They almost beat the Saints in that in the divisional round, but they did not win the division that year. Last, I guess now 2 years ago was where I thought there really might be a curse in this division. So Eagles won the NFC 3 or 4 years ago, lost to the Chiefs in the Super Bowl, came back, got off to a hot start. They had the division in their back pocket, and then they just inexplicably played like shit for the last 6 weeks of the year. And that just came out of nowhere, or they just looked terrible. And then Dallas came through the back door and won the division. Made no sense. And then the next year they won the Super Bowl. And showed, well, why did that happen? Why did that 6 week stretch happen? Like, how did that happen? So yeah, like I've talked about the Commanders. I just see the sophomore slump happening this year. So I don't even know. This is crazy. I have the Dallas Cowboys winning this division. I think
oh my God.
I think they're going to win 11 games. Eagles are going to win 11 games, and they're going to tie. But this division curse just can't be broken. Until it's broken, I'm not gonna pick the previous winners. Philly's going to be the 5 seed probably in the NFC, but I have the Cowboys somehow winning this division. I think Dak finds his regular season magic back. They will lose in the wild card round like always, but they will somehow find a way to get to that spot again where they're all the attention's on there. Oh, this is going to be the year, and they fall flat. But yeah, I have Dallas first, Eagles second, Commanders third, and Giants fourth. Yes, this is a complete disagreement.
We haven't been this far off base this whole way, and probably not ever again through the rest of these divisions. That's crazy.
Well, and I wanted to go. Another reason I want to go bold because I picked all the same division winners in the AFC, and I feel like, I mean, that never happens.
The NFC usually can vary a little bit more.
Can vary a little bit. Normally, if Washington has shown history of competence, they would be the shoe-in for me to win this division, and then Philadelphia would be second. I clearly see Philadelphia as a playoff team still, but I just don't trust Washington, so that's why I have Dallas, who has won the division a few times in the past with Dak as their quarterback. I just somehow it happens. I might be a fool. You can call me a fool come December, but that's my bold prediction.
Right. Hey, if it happens that way, that would be wild and probably really great for the league. I see the Eagles as the only team from this division that make the playoffs, considering what the NFC North is looking like, and then possibly getting 2 from the NFC West. So yeah, with the records the way they'll be, the way I'm predicting them to come out, I could see the Eagles as the only playoff team from this division.